Hello and welcome this wonderful Wednesday morning to Market Insights. I am Lavina Emma. On Market Insights, we bring you stock market analysis, commodities, and currency updates. Now, every day on Market Insights, we discuss the foreign exchange rates, both official and unofficial, how the naira is weakening against the dollar and other foreign currencies. So this situation has gotten so bad that it has affected the cost of living negatively. For instance, when you go to the grocery store or your regular supermarkets, you could spend 10,000 naira on just a few items. And we've been experiencing this last month, this month, and it doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. Well, the federal government, through the Minister of Finance and the Central Bank of Nigeria governor, are working hard to rectify these issues. And they've put some measures in place. For instance, they also recommended that we need to patronize our locally grown food. We need to increase production also, and we need to reduce importation in the long run. So on today's show, I'm going to discuss how we can diversify the Nigerian economy from over-reliance on foreign exchange, amongst other issues. Now, my guest on today's show is Vincent Oshoma. He's the head capital market and also the chief dealer of Interstate Securities Limited. He is also a qualified investment analyst and an authorized dealer for the Nigerian Stock Exchange. He has over 10 years experience in the capital market. Welcome to the show, Vincent Oshoma. Welcome to Market Insight this morning.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Okay, so I'm really excited to discuss our foreign exchange issues in Nigeria. Well, I'm excited to discuss the foreign exchange issues with you and how it's affecting the Nigerian economy. We've noticed in recent times that the Nigerian naira is weakening against the foreign currencies like the dollar, the pound sterling, and the euro. It's been weakening over a period of time. We've been noticing this decline. So how do I put this now? How do we diversify the Nigerian economy from over-reliance on the foreign exchange? Because we've noticed that a lot of goods, when we go shopping in the grocery store, like our cereals, like our breakfast cereals like bread, butter, different things that we use for breakfast, we find that some of these things are imported. So how do we diversify our Nigerian economy so that we're not so reliant on the foreign currency like the dollar?
Thank you very much. I think the major problem is not relying first of all, relying on the foreign currency. I think the major problem has to do with relying on the source of us getting the foreign currency, because currently the major source of the dollar for Nigeria is crude oil exports. And because our export are reduced over the years, there was a time we used to export over 2 million barrels per day, but currently our production capacity is hovering about 1-something million barrels per day. So it has affected our ability to earn Forex. So that is one of the reasons why there is shortage of Forex in the system. Then with respect to diversifying the economy, I think we also have to look at our dependence on imported products. Our ability to produce a lot of the things we consume locally, I think that will help in also reducing demand for Forex. Those are the issues that we are grappling with.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier on in my discussion that the federal government's put some measures in place to increase, for example, to actually stop our over-reliance, like you mentioned, on foreign goods. So, for instance, like you rightfully mentioned, we have to reduce our dependency on foreign goods. We have to reduce importation and focus more on exportation. We also need to focus on how we can increase our locally made goods, and we also need to strategize how we can invest in key strategic areas in the economy, like in our agricultural sector. But what exactly is the impact of this foreign exchange rate in our economy? If we follow these measures that the federal government puts in place, will this actually have any impact to actually change the weakening of the naira against the dollar?
The current situation is the current situation that we are faced with is something that is the years of systemic neglect. And that's why we have arrived at this current stage, because we didn't just arrive here. Like I mentioned, the major challenge has to do with production capacity. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Yes. So please, I'm listening to you, Mr. Oshoma.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, like I said the current situation that we are facing, first of all, we have to look at our production, oil production, which has reduced drastically from over 2 million barrels in previous years to 1 point something million. So has affected our earning capacity, our ability to earn Forex. Then you also look at what has been done in that area. So despite government effort to increase production, we have seen the sector, we have been seeing a lot of theft in the region, which have led reduction in production, and also has a lot of lack of investment in that sector has affected also our productive capacity. So those are the issues that need to be dealt with. Also coupled with the fact that our production capacity in terms of locally goods that are consumed locally, I think we have not done much in terms of food. We have not done much in terms of manufacturing, trying to increase our production, both in terms of local food production and also add value to this food. I think the value chain in building our industrial sector, these are the things that have also led us here. So if we want to actually make a headway, they have to see reinvestment in the oil sector, policies that we reduce and action that will reduce oil theft and also increase investment. You know, for a long time, the petroleum industry bill took a long time for it to be passed, and that affected investment in that sector. But it was passed and has been signed into law. So we have the Petroleum Industry Act that guides our sector, which is a good thing. But the years that it took to get that into an act, I think affected growth in that sector. That's what we are suffering from now. And also we have not really seen much development in terms of our ability to produce goods locally. So Nigerians have to depend on imported goods. Those are some of the issues that we need to take care of.
Okay, I understand what you have just said, Mr. Vincent Oshoma, but we know definitely this Forex issue has been going on. It has been on the steady increase from last year. I would say from before the year ended, it has been on a very high increase, and it is not relenting anytime soon. We've noticed that. But if we look at our day-to-day activities, we don't use the dollar to transact our daily businesses when we move about in this country. We just use our local currencies. But buying and selling of, for instance, food commodities in the markets, it could be our local markets or the supermarkets. When we have to buy items, we often observe that we are told, oh, the increase is because of the increase in the price of dollar right now. That's why this food item is going for this price. Everybody keeps blaming it on the increase in foreign currency. So how exactly are we supposed to navigate our way through this? Yes, we know we have to patronize our locally produced goods. We also know that Nigerians have been actually, yes, our farm production in recent times, we've been suffering because of insecurity. But right now, the federal government has put some measures in place to make sure that the challenge of insecurity is also solved. So how can we increase this, making sure that the rotation of our local currency stays within us right here in this country, so that we don't have to keep depending on the naira all the time in terms of food production, paying for our locally made food? That's what I mean. Because we've been using this, price of dollar has gone up. Yep. That's why we have to pay this price for this food item, in respect to our high cost of food products, Mr. Oshoma.
Yes, the reason why you continue to see people alluding to the cost of dollar for increasing goods and commodity is the fact that there is a foreign input in a lot of things, that both things we consume consume and those things that we make locally. I'll give you an example. One of the staple food in Nigeria is bread. You know, bread is produced locally when you have those local production that you call agege bread. But the flour that is used to produce this bread is imported because the wheat, we don't majorly grow wheat in Nigeria. Wheat production is very low in Nigeria. So once you have that input, so when there is an increase in Forex, definitely you should expect increase in a staple food as like bread. So that's why it affects a lot of things, because in the production of those things, even though they are produced locally, there's a lot of foreign inputs that definitely will lead to a rise in the price of those items once there is an increase. So we need to look at it comprehensively. If the government really wants to see a reduction in the price of commodities, then we need to be able to increase our ability to produce a lot of those things locally. Like wheat, for example, is something that we produce locally. So they will need to see a lot of investment in wheat production locally so that we will not be affected have to import flour for us to be able to produce wheat. You know, there was once a time that Nigeria was a major importer of cement, but as a result of government policy, though we have a lot of limestone in Nigeria, we're importing cement in bulk, and we have to government policy and encouragement, we have seen a lot of local production of cement. So we expect to see a lot of those policies in our areas so that we can increase our productive capacity and will not have to be affected by Forex. I think that's the major way out. Increase the opportunity to export products, because if we increase our production capacity, we're able to meet local demand and also be able to export, which will also end us Forex. Then we'll not have to depend on oil, only receipt from oil to be able to earn foreign exchange. So that's the way, just the way about it. Increasing the local production and also cutting our demand for foreign goods.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. So thank you for that, actually, for that explanation, actually. So what's your opinion on how this impacts, what the impacts of the foreign exchange rate and how it has affected the Nigerian economy so far? Because we always talk about it on Market Insights, or these are the official rates for the Naira today, these are the unofficial rates, but how has this deeply affected the Nigerian economy?
It has affected the Nigerian economy greatly, because if you look at inflation figures, the latest inflation figures for January show that in Nigerian inflation is currently at 29.90% year on year. And if you look at the inflation figure, the major push for that inflation figure is food inflation. And when you break down the food inflation component, the major push for the food inflation outside the insecurity in the northern region is the imported inflation. And that important inflation has to do with the devaluation that we have experienced from last year June, when the government made an attempt to unify the rates in the markets. So, and we have seen devaluation from official rate as of June was around 400 something naira to $1. And now, as of today, we are talking about 1,500 and something naira to $1. That tells you a huge 1,000 has been added to the naira have been divided by over 1,000 naira. So that's definitely, because like I mentioned, we are importing a lot of food, definitely we flow into the cost of food items, and that has affected the average, how it led to inflation and also inflationary pressures, and affected a lot of persons. The disposable income of the average Nigerian has been affected, because the amount of money of his income is spent on food has increased. So that definitely has an impact on the system, as well as also it will affect investment, because when the disposable income is increased, definitely there will be a reduction in funds available for investment. So that is why we are seeing those pressures in the system. So it has an impact on everybody, and also had an impact on growth of the economy.
I wanted to discuss further as to, we know there are other countries, especially here in this continent, Africa, that have been affected by the impacts of foreign exchange and how their local currencies have also been weakened. But some of these countries have been able to rise up and improve on their local currencies. So what lessons can Nigeria learn from those countries to also improve on her local currency against the foreign currency?
Yeah, the lesson to be learned is just has to do with increasing our local production and diversifying the economy. When you talk about most countries in the world, even African countries, you will find out that a lot of African countries are suffering because of the fact that a lot of African countries depend on imported produce. For Tanzania, you mentioned that they are able to get out of it. You know, Tanzania is not quite a huge economy, small economy, but most economy are affected. So it has to do with ability to diversify the economy and to increase your sources of Forex for able to meet the importation demands, as well as increase your local production. Because if a lot, especially for food, if a lot of the food that you consume in the nation is produced locally, it will help in stabilizing the country, especially when you have your areas of comparative advantage. It also basically do with developing your areas of comparative advantage. I'll give you a good example. Nigeria has an advantage when it comes to oil. So we ought not to be importing refined products. But as a result of years of neglect of developing that sector, we have found ourselves having to import, which is one of the things causing a strain on our Forex. Also, you also look at the food that we have talked about. We can produce, which is majorly used in producing, making bread, but we have to import it because we have not developed that area, as well as so many other areas. We'll talk about rice. Until recently, when we increase our rice production, a lot of the rice that we consume is imported. So there are so many areas the government has to look at comprehensively to reduce importation, and also in develop areas we have comparative advantage so that we can develop our ability to export and earn Forex from those products and from those areas. I think those are some of the things we just need to learn, because countries that have not really affected, it just has to do with them having a diversified economy and ability to earn more Forex, developing their comparative areas of comparative advantage.
Okay, so economic diversification and investing in key strategic areas, those are your pointers on how we can actually get out of this mess of the Naira weakening against foreign currencies. But I also want to mention, what role can technology and innovation play in improving our local production here in Nigeria? It could be with food, it could do with raw materials, just to help improve our economy in the country. Yes, your thoughts, Mr. Oshoma.
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
What role can technology and innovation play in improving our local production here in Nigeria so that we can actually help our Naira to get better against foreign currencies? Technology and innovation, what role can it play in improving local production?
Yeah, technology plays a great role in being able to leapfrog a lot of the processes that we need to go through in terms of industrialization. So technology plays a great role. But before I go deep into the role technology plays in developing our production, productive capacity, I also like to highlight the fact that Nigeria can actually earn a lot from technology, Forex from technology, because in today's world, they will see a lot of outsourcing. India is already earning a lot from IT, being an outsourcing hub for the world. And with the tech skills we have in this country, I think if there's more development, more focus in that sector, we have a lot of Nigerians that will go to train young, because Nigeria have in terms of young population, a huge young population we can train in tech, so that they can be able to provide the services, tech service, outsourcing services globally, and be able to earn Forex that will even help in stabilizing the country. I think that's one area the government needs to look at. Also, the manufacturing sector we can also be able to adopt the use of technology in able to leapfrog a lot of processes. A good example is even we talked about oil theft. That is one of the things that is affecting oil production. I think with the use of technology, they should be able to take care of oil theft and also improve our productive capacity. I'll give you a good example. The largest producer of oil in the world, which is Saudi Arabia, they actually have the technology whereby they are able to oversee all the rigs and also the stations across the country. So it helps them to know what is happening at any given time. When there is a oil theft, they should be able to know the level of oil that is coming out from the various rigs. They should be able to trace it. So I think this is something that the government can also look at investing in, so be able to monitor our production and also monitor oil theft in the region. So you cannot downplay, you cannot overemphasize the role technology can actually play in helping us, in fact, quicken our industrialization and also end Forex for the economic growth and stability.
Okay, so we can actually use these technologies to improve on our food production, which can also increase our food production output and can also ensure that we have sufficiently produced food in the country before we can talk about exporting these, whatever food items we need to export. Okay, so just before we round up, what role can we as citizens play in improving our lives? We know that this high cost of living has affected us in so many areas. I know every day we go out, we complain about this, but what role do you think we, the citizens of this country, can help ourselves to improve on this situation actually? This high cost of living actually, what role can private citizens play to improve on it?
I think what is expected of every city is that you have to look at your spending. So cut down on excessive spending, areas that you used to, frivolous areas you have to, and also spend based on budget. This is a time that people need to spend based on budget and be able to go through these tough times. Another thing is that citizens need to also be encouraged to go local by patronizing made in Nigerian products. Yes, there are some talks. People may say that in terms of quality, they are low quality. I think is one thing that also the producers have to improve on, trying to increase the quality so that there'll be more patronage from the citizens. But I think at this time, we just have to help ourselves and help the country by patronizing made in Nigerian goods, so that we can reduce the strain on the foreign exchange. I think that will help, and also cut down on the spend on things that are necessary, not on things that are frivolous. I think that will help in people controlling their spending, not to be so that they won't be that affected as with the increase in expenses, the increase in cost of goods and services. Thank you.
Okay then, okay, so we as individuals need to monitor our spending habits so that we don't entirely depend on foreign goods all the time. Yes, I agree with you on that. But earlier on, I mentioned that the government put some measures in place to curb the dependence on foreign goods. They mentioned increase in local food production. Like you also said, patronize more of our homemade produced goods. But to what extent do you think that this can be achieved? Because we all know that for most of our day-to-day activities, it could be maybe for example, it could be bathing, what we used to bathe, it could be what we used to eat, it could be our writing materials, our papers, but you know, we do depend on foreign goods. So we know in all its entirety, we can't exactly stop importation completely. We still need some certain items from foreign countries for our day-to-day activities in Nigeria. So to what extent do you think this can be achieved? Because the government also recommended reduction on importation. Do you really think it's going to be very feasible to achieve this?
Yes, it's feasible. I think it has to start part of the work has to start with the government. The government should walk the talk. It's not just about telling Nigerians to patronize locally produced goods. The government has to also patronize locally produced goods, because in our country, the biggest spender is the government. When you look at the budget, the government spends a lot So the government officials and also government expenditure should be focused on patronizing locally produced goods. I think that will also help in growing our economy. So when government start patronizing more of locally produced goods, I think it's also encourage the average Nigerian to follow suit. I think it starts with the government and also those in position of authority, position of influence, preaching that and living the talk, not just saying it. They're living the talk. I think the average man will follow suit and can help in developing our economy. Also, government has a way, also have to work with the manufacturers and the producers to increase the quality, ways of increasing the quality of goods produced, and that will also encourage the average Nigerian to patronize these locally produced goods, because when there's an increase in quality, people will have to patronize them.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Oshoma. It was good discussing the impacts of foreign exchange on the economy and how it has also affected the high cost of living in the economy. But just before we round up, and just a last bit of a question before we go. There was an issue a few days ago about how the EFCC arrested some Bureau de Change operators in Abuja, but they have been released. But it was also due to the fact that our unofficial rates at the foreign exchange, we have both the official and unofficial rates. Our unofficial rates were quite high against the naira, selling against the dollar, and also buying against the dollar. So I believe to curb this, these Bureau de Change operators were arrested, but they were also released after some time. But how does this actually, does arresting these people, these unofficial black market dealers, change anything in the price of the dollar against the naira? Yes, your opinion?
Yes, I don't really think that has much impact, because when you look at it, those Bureau de Change, was a time they were getting supply, some level of supply from the government, but that have been stopped. So they don't get supply from the government. So you can't really control how they do their business in terms of the rate. I think, yes, there's an impact currently in the market. There's the impact of speculative activities, which I think the government is trying to cut down. I don't think that is a right way to go about it, because some persons are holding the currency. Yeah, that's true. But I don't think it's those the Bureau de Change guys are just there waiting for someone to come and buy from them or sell to them. So they serve as a middleman in the system. I don't think they are the major problem in terms of the speculative activities we are seeing in the system. So I don't think it really have much impact going that route in terms of arresting them. And good that they have been released, which I think we help them in the system.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Vincent Oshoma. So on today's show, I was discussing on the impacts of foreign exchange on the Nigerian economy and how it's affecting the high cost of living. So Mr. Oshoma he's a capital market analyst and a stock market dealing clerk with over 10 years experience. So it was good having you on Market Insights this morning. Thank you, Mr. Oshoma.